Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Bolin.
Present.
Commissioner Metcalf.
Present.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Halby. Vice
Present.
Chair Halby. Sorry. Commissioner Durant.
Here.
Commissioner Bacon.
Here.
Chairwoman Verdugo London.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Approval of minutes from January 9.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the minutes be approved as printed and distributed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes passed. And we don't have any old business to discuss today, so let's go on to the new business. First item is A Cool PZ 19-01-01, a rezoning request initiated by the City of Coolidge for approximately 9.7 acres of land located around the intersection of State Route 87 and Tucker Street, changing the zoning from general rural to general industrial, legally described as follows. Those portions of the plat of Randolph, Arizona, recorded in Book 2 of Map, page 5, in the office of the County Recorders, Pinal County, Arizona, more particularly described as the following. Lot 1 through 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24 in Block 54, lots 15, 16. The southern half of Lot 18, lots 19, 20, and 21, all of Block 55 and all of Block 66 except Block 14, together with adjacent right-of-ways for all alleys: Tucker Street, aka E Street, Bateman Street, aka F Street, and State Route 87, aka Central Avenue, as shown on said plat. Director Lopez.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for being here tonight. As you know, we recently annexed this property into the City of Coolidge. We had the property on the east side of the state highway in the city. This we just annexed the west side and a little bit south. And when we do that, we have 6 months to change the zoning to the most compatible thing that needs to be there. So all this is initiated by staff to convert the zoning from general rural, which is agricultural, into general industrial I2, which is what is happening there in reality. That's the business is being conducted there. And that'll allow us to issue permits or do anything else they may need to do. And so it's an action we have to take within 6 months. We're just taking it sooner in case they need to do anything. And I don't know if Mr. Hanson has anything to add to that. That's it. But there's no action on anything else other than Stinger's property and Arizona Water. That's the ones we brought in. There's no impact on the other properties around there. So. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
No. Amazing. Director Lopez.
Sir.
There's a house or a building located to the west of the Stinger's original buildings that is going to be surrounded on 3 sides by industrial. Okay? What effect will having industrial surrounding what I don't know, but I believe is a residential property?
Well, the use is already there, so they're in fact surrounded by industrial already, with Stinger being there.
They're using it already, but
Right.
But now we're at the current moment, unless we change this, they're not legally using it per our code. Is that correct?
No, they're legal right now because we have 6 months to use it, to change it over. And
Okay, but
Yeah.
if the owner says, I don't want to be surrounded by industrial, and came in here and raised concerns about being surrounded on three sides by industrial, would we look at that or consider that, or should we just, let them do what they want to do?
No, I mean, as P and Z members, you have the right to look at everything that impacts that property or surrounding property.
There's
So,
another one on the south end that looks to be the same thing.
Mhm.
A piece of property that they don't own, that they have surrounded completely with industrial.
So, when they were in the county, they were zoned general rural and had their operations legally under a special use permit, allowing this operation.
Right.
Kind of like our conditional use permits. So we annex them, we assign general rural, because that's what they were. They have all the rights they had before in the county. They don't lose anything. So, continuing to use those properties as they are now, we have no effect on, or say.
And
They have that right.
Then we're changing it, why?
If they wish to pull future permits for expansion within these sites, we need the applicable zoning.
They would need correct zoning in order to do that.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know how the owners of those two properties feel.
We're gonna find out, I'll bet.
Well, we have one owner here, but she's not being surrounded, although she is basically surrounded anyhow.
We sent out notices along with the paper publication, and both those houses were notified. I haven't received any calls or comments from anyone.
And I was sure you had. I wasn't questioning that they weren't
Yeah.
notified. I don't see them here. But that is, I guess, a question. I wouldn't want to be surrounded by Stinger Welding personally. They work 24 hours a day at times, and they're noisy. We've heard about that from other residents of Randolph in the past at this meeting where they are, they're a busy business, and that's good. I'm happy for them. I'm glad for them.
I would not be thrilled to have my house surrounded either, but the fact is, they already are.
Okay.
Any more questions, comments? Okay, we will now open it to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and your address, please.
Carol, do you wish to speak to the board? Okay. All right. Carol is an owner of the property that is just outside the boundary. There's a small yellow building off of Bateman Street outside of the dark-colored zoning that she owns and is in the process of selling. To give the board information.
Seeing no one is approaching the podium, let's close the public hearing. Any further discussion? No. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Cool PZ 19-0101 as presented and no amendments.
I second.
With a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, next is Cool PZ 190202. Proposed zoning code amendment modifying fence restrictions for solar farms within the Agriculture AG zoning district. Section 1004, fences and walls. Construction, maintenance, and height requirements. 1, construction and maintenance. D, barbed wire fences shall be allowed for permitted solar farms in the AG zoning district as required by electrical code. D, residential fences and walls The above provision shall not apply to solar farms within the AG's zoning. District solar farms within the AG zoning district shall be allowed fences up to 8 feet in height as required by electrical code. Director Lopez.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we, during the course of looking and speaking to a big utility-scale solar company that's looking at some of the properties that we came before you and rezoned with Pinal Land Holdings, they made us aware that in order for them to build their facility, the National Electric Code requires some security of the facility with barbed wire on top of the fence. Our code does not allow barbed wire at this point. So we saw a need, in order for them to comply with the National Electric Code, we would ask you to approve barbed wire in a specific case when it surrounds a solar farm. And we thought it would be probably tilted in. Even though that doesn't say that, we would do that during the review of the site review of the property. And it also allows the height. So it just depends on it's very specific to solar farms, and that's how we were presenting this to you tonight. So these changes allow that. It would allow them to put in the fence with some barbed wire up on top, as requested or as required by the National Electric Code. So it's just to bring us in compliance with that code.
Madam Chair, if I may, on your agenda, under D, where D5, that 5 should actually be a 6.
Got it. Okay.
They will be added
So we would be,
to these conditions. There are 5 previous conditions that apply in D, residential, which ag is. So we're putting this exception in D, and then C.1 already has A through C. We're going to add this D. C specifically says barbed wire is only allowed in I-1 and 2 zoning districts only. So it is specific to solar farms in ag, and it's not the entire farm. It's not the perimeter. They have some interior equipment and battery storage and various things that National Electric Code requires this for. So we're not talking about the entire boundary.
Oh, okay,
We're
so
talking
it's
about some
not
interior
surrounding.
structures.
And that was my question, was it's just specific equipment that's going to be fenced like this? We're
It
not
would
going to
be-
see it from the highway.
Yes, Commissioner Halby, that's correct. It is only the things required to have that by National Electric Code, which isn't necessarily the panels itself. The code's changed, so we just wrote it as required by code.
Yeah, it's wherever high voltage is present.
Yeah.
If you notice the NextEra Energy over by 11 Mile Corner, the requirement of the fencing that was powder coated was ours from the city to NextEra Energy, so it would look nice. And so we would probably follow that theme for the exterior, along with landscaping or anything we would require. Maybe not on a berm like that, probably more in a little shallow ditch. So,
Well, Rick kind of resonates with me in saying I don't want Coolidge to look like a prison.
yeah, absolutely. We agree. But we want to comply with the National Electric Code. So.
Absolutely.
We
This
better.
is- This is
Absolutely.
something that we just didn't know until we recently met. This solar developer will be bringing a site plan soon. You guys will see. I imagine that site plan will delineate which equipment has that on it.
Yeah.
anyone have any questions?
I do.
Sir?
Under C, this number 1, barbed wire fences shall be allowed. It doesn't say anything about having a 6-foot fence plus a 1-foot barbed wire fence. It says that barbed wire fences. So, I mean, you can interpret that to mean a 3-strand, a 5-strand barbed wire fence, and not say anything about having a chain link fence that's 6 feet tall with barbed wire on top, which is what it says on the memorandum. So,
And the completeness of C1D, barbed wire fences shall be allowed for permitted solar farms in the AG zoning district as required by electrical code. So they will be allowed, the fences, up to the electrical code minimum requirements.
Okay, the electrical code will then revert back to saying that it's a 6-foot
It's a
chain link
6
fence
plus 1.
with a up to, and barbed wire will be allowed on top of that fence.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know, when you bring all those panels together at one point, there's a lot of voltage there.
That's what they're talking about.
And you don't want animals leaping over the fence. You don't want people climbing over the fence, because batteries are a good source of revenue.
Well, that's a good point, Commissioner Metcalf.
Being an electrician, I
Every
tell you.
solar farm that this commission has approved has a requirement for 6-foot chain link fencing around the perimeter of the entire site. So it will be fenced. And then the batteries and such you're talking about, and where it goes into the transmission line to leave the generating field, will have a little harder time getting in and out of than the perimeter.
Yep.
And most of the time, these sites are so big that that portion of it won't be seen from the road.
Yeah,
At a
it's
minimum,
usually in the
that kind
interior.
of stuff would have to be set back 50 feet from the property line anyway.
And they may be fairly small within the whole complex, because they're talking now that they put separate batteries in portions of it spread throughout the system, instead of grouping them all together. So if, we were worried about, you have a fire and, one battery catches on fire and all of them start going up, and, we have to have the right capacity to fight those with our fire department. But they said, no, we now are putting batteries separate in areas, and then they connect together. So it's really interesting. It's evolving, I guess. When you talk about big, this is the one we're talking about. It's probably 100 megawatt.
So then how does that look like for this particular agenda? I mean, if the batteries are spread out through the entire site,
Well, when I say
looking at fencing off those high voltage areas, then
Yeah. It'll just
potentially we're looking at fencing off the entire site.
no. We're talking about fencing the batteries are like a semi-trailer, the size of a container, and so that they would be fenced off if there
Gotcha.
was some electrical equipment.
Okay.
So they're fairly small, versus putting them all together in one big area where there could be more of a hazard or potentially one catches on fire, they all burn up.
The locations of these installations and stuff will be shown on the site plans. You guys will see this. And if, like another developer attempted to put them all against a residential property,
Right.
that didn't make that lady real happy, you guys have the power to stop that. And no, they need to go here. Or you have to maintain this distance.
Moving
So
back.
I really don't know where they're going to go. I don't know how many of these separate battery installations are going to have, but it will all come to light at some point.
Yeah, you'll get to see them on the site plan. And our fire department sees it too, and building safety, so everybody gets a chance to comment before they come to you.
We'll now open it to the public. Anyone wishing to speak, please step to the podium and state your name and your address. Well, no one's approaching the podium, so we'll go ahead and close it to the public. Any more discussions? No? I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve Cool PZ 190202 as presented.
All right, motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Reports? Anyone?
Madam Chair, I really we're moving forward with a lot of projects. Houses are coming in. We heard KB Homes signed up to be member of the Chamber of Commerce, and then wants to buy a little kiosk sign. That's exciting because they haven't been in here recently, as far as I know. It was D.R. Horton, and they're talking to APS about starting up somewhere. They haven't told us where. so things are moving forward in the residential construction area. We've been doing our business retention expansion meetings with Felix Construction and some of the others, Heritage. They're going along really well, asking them what they need for employment and those type of things. So we're still talking to some new energy companies, like the one we're talking to here, some new ones that came in the other day, just informational sometimes, and maybe near our city, but maybe on not right in the city, but will be affecting us, like the lines go through the city. And so Nicola's moving forward, property closed. They have the property in there, they have possession of the property. They're going to go out with I think a public statement, but I think at this point it's closed, so we're aware of that. And we're waiting we've got a preliminary site plan, we're waiting for a more detailed site plan, so we continue to move forward with it. They're moving forward with their facility up in Phoenix. We're in discussions with the city of Phoenix on their foreign trade zone. I talked to Denise Yanez, she's the manager of that, yesterday, and we're sending them letters, and we'll be on the city of Phoenix agenda, I believe, April 17th, potentially, with our site too, to get their approval for a foreign trade zone for Nicola. And so that's what we're targeting at this point. So everything's moving forward. Pretty exciting. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'd just like to note that the census is coming.
Oh, I'm
soon.
sorry, yes.
The 2020 census. We've formed a committee, so if any of you would like to join, I
Complete
think we'll
Count
be
Committee.
announcing.
Yes, Complete Count Committee, and the next meeting will be on March 21st, I believe, at 5 p.m. And I also shared that information with the nonprofit meetings they have on Wednesday mornings that Bonnie Palmer runs. Had about 20 plus people in there, so I passed around the literature and talked to Emily Dugo Aldridge, or Verdugo. That is, she is heading that up out of the Dallas office, I believe. But she gave us a lot of information, and I was asking her the number for every person, the value of what it's worth to the city, and it's 1,976, I believe she said. She sent me an exact number, but I think that's pretty close. So if we miss a family of 5, you can imagine that's a lot of money that the city
$6,000.
would miss. Yeah, would miss in recouping of your federal money that you pay in taxes.
Yeah.
All we're doing is getting it back for our community.
Yep. So
And,
I just ask that we start talking about it and reminding our neighbors to be counted,
it's very important.
and I'll give you updates as we get closer.
If you're really bored, you can look at the history on the internet of the census and see Thomas Jefferson was the first one that ran the first census. It was pretty cool. Had only like 1 question or 2 questions, then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, you know.
Yeah.
The census can only count people that are permanent, full-time residents?
They count everybody that's in a household at that point in time, no matter what.
What is the point in time that we're doing the census?
The census will take place April 1st, 2020. And then they'll go out to houses. And what's interesting is they're doing it all by internet. But they will go back out to people's houses if they get no response and they know that there's probably somebody there. So they do canvassing. Mr. Hansen has created a big file with addresses that all the cities send in to the census and look at that. And so it's quite an effort. They'll continue on counting afterwards up until I think almost the end of the year before they prepare everything, get the report together to deliver to the president.
So do the winter visitors get counted?
If they're here at the time, and if they're here over 50% of the time, I believe they do. So they can be counted only once, but so they can't be counted here and then in the Dakotas.
Well, because they usually go home by April.
Right. So it depends. If they're still here, we want to count them because then we just let them know you should be counted only one time. If you're in the U.S., if they go back to Canada, we still count them.
You can count them if they go to Canada, as long as they don't leave till after April 1st.
Well, they're here, so.
I mean, they
We
live
count
here 5 or
But-
6 months a year.
Yeah. Yep.
So it'll be online, and it'll also be by telephone, so you could call the 800 number or whatever.
Right. And we intend to have volunteers and people at the library. So those people that don't have access to computers can go to the library. The people there will assist them in logging in and answering some questions, and hopefully it'll be painless and quick. That's our plan anyway, so it'll be interesting.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Madam Chair. Sorry. It's really important.
Hey, Gilbert, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Before we adjourn. We had some torrential rains the last couple weeks.
Mhm.
all that new construction down Main Street flooded.
Everything worked okay?
I've been hit up by a few business owners
Uh-huh, really?
asking why.
Why?
With all the new curbing, new gutters, new drainage, why are their stores still flooding and why do they have to sandbag?
Well, the one thing is most of the retention, and now just in general, I'm not the expert, but most of the retention is designed for like a 100-year flood event. And sometimes you will get one bigger than that. That's like, this was kind of an unprecedented storm event. And so when those occur, then it may overrun the existing, what the infrastructure is designed to hold during a regular 100-year flood. That could happen. I mean, because you can imagine if you try to design a worst-case scenario, you'd have these massive retention basins that would never ever, get water, and then you spend a lot of money. So I mean, they try to best way I can answer that, they try to design the systems to handle the water as best they can. The thing with our city is fairly flat, so unlike other cities that you can build tile pipes into the rivers and all that. Even those places flood. You can see what happens in the Mississippi when it rains over there and those things. That's where we're thinking maybe we'll get some future water. We'll bring it over in pipes from the Mississippi River. They've been talking about that. But anyway, so that's probably that's my best explanation. The system was designed to handle a typical storm event, but we had so much rain it probably overran, the system. I would imagine. I can ask Matt Rencher and our city engineer. Probably say the same thing. I would think. I used to work with flood control people at the county, so I mean, it doesn't make me that great, but I knew a little bit about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
We had 2 inches of rain.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Redcalf, that's a lot of rain.
We've had 2 inches before.
Yeah, we have.
It flooded then too.
I know.
I remember being on a bulldozer at the Picacho Lake trying to shore up or seal the hole in '83,
Levy?
and I almost lost the bulldozer because I had to jump off because the water, you can't stop it. It just washes out, and I just back. I was a young guy then. It was kind of cool, but now I'm like, what was I
Couple
thinking?
years ago.
Yeah, what was I thinking?
All right, call to public. Would anyone like to approach the podium? All right, we'll go ahead and close that. Let's go ahead and adjourn. Do we,
Madam Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those that want to stay? Yay, let's go.
I can go out in 5 minutes.
Thank you all for your help tonight. Appreciate it.